God will stand with you if you stand with him.
Amen.
That's why it's important that you obey God. And I need about 1,000 people that will give right now. Some can maybe not give the $1,000, but you can give $100.
That's right. The seed offering.
And I want you to mail it in right now.
So yeah, he alluded to that there. He's asking for 1,000 people to give up to $1,000. He okay, he doesn't want to be thrown on the street. I get that. I don't want anyone to be unhoused. He wants $1 million. Like, you get that if you got $5,000, you could rent a really nice place, right? You could do that. Like, sure, you'd have lost your church or whatever, it's foreclosed on, you don't have your house, that's sad. But like a couple $1,000 and you're not actually out on the street. You're not owed another mansion. But look at the tactics he uses to browbeat people, many of whom probably don't have $1,000 just sitting around burning a hole in their bank account to give to him. He says, God will stand with you if you stand with him. But he's not asking you to stand with God. He's asking you to stand with him. He wants your money. He's not saying donate it to a charity, donate it to even Christians or whatever in need. Give me your money. And the other guy, I don't know who that bozo is, but when he's like, it's not gonna happen, you're not gonna get foreclosed on, God is too big for that. But like, could we pause and think about what you're saying there? Like that this guy who, he's done all sorts of crazy stuff that we'll remind people of. Again, convicted felon. So I think God maybe could let this one get foreclosed on. Do you understand, dude, that lots of people have lost their homes? There are many, many unhoused people right now. So was God not big enough for that? Or is it that God did not save everyone, either chose not to or wasn't capable of it? Why would Jim Bakker, the televangelist, why would he be so special? A guy who, aside from the time he spent in prison, has lived a pretty nice life with other people donating to provide that life. Why is he still at this late age owed so much more than the people who have never gotten that sort of charity, who have lived lives that are actually difficult, did not just con people and eventually get sent to prison? It's just such a twisted worldview. By the way, he said later on the show, Jim Bakker, I guarantee you God's going to do something. God's gonna bless you as you give, because when you give, you're gonna receive. Again, good advice in general. What's he giving? Other than chastising you, other than shaming you, browbeating you to give him money, what is he giving back? Again, the dude had so much money for so long. But anyway, I just want to turn to why his show is in the position it's in. So one of his show's co-hosts indicated the financial problems began back in 2020 when Bakker was in trouble with a number of authorities for hawking silver solution during the COVID-19 pandemic. So yes, he's one of those people. In one case, he reached a settlement with Missouri Attorney General that included restitution of $156,000, which is a significant amount of money. And I want to remind everyone that he has fallen pretty far. You may not even be really familiar with him because it's been a long time since he was super famous. But back in the 1980s, he was one of the most prominent televangelists around the country. He had a Heritage USA theme park, like his own theme park. It was the third most visited theme park in 1986 after just Disneyland and Disney World. His theme park had 6 million visitors in 1 year. And now he's on TV begging people to give him $1 million or whatever. So it has really fallen apart. But again, I've alluded to the fact that he's a felon. So really fast, why was that? Well, in the late 1980s, things started to fall apart. Former aide Jessica Hahn admitted that she and Bakker had an affair. Hardly moral behavior, prompting condemnation from other well-known televangelists like Jimmy Swaggart. Bakker was also indicted on federal charges of mail fraud and wire fraud in 1988, with the Department of Justice alleging that the money used to build Heritage USA had come from the Bakkers defrauding their audience. He was found guilty, sentenced to 45 years in prison. His sentence was eventually dropped down to just 8 years and he was released in 1994, but has never been able to reach the lofty heights of the past years. We'll see, maybe if people donate enough, he can get that theme park up and running again. It doesn't seem likely at this point. But with that said, thank you everybody for joining me for this John Solo show. We've got more planned for tomorrow's program when Brett Ehrlich is gonna be joining me. We're gonna be throwing away our garbage people of the week and also acknowledging our hero of the week. And you can vote for both of those on the post tab at youtube.com/The Damage Report. Thank you to everybody who sent in your comments, your tweets, your super chats, gifted membership. I really do appreciate that. For now, stay safe out there, stay sane out there. We'll see you soon.
Welcome. Indisputable, good to be with you. We have a lot on the agenda today. Breaking down news of the day, none other than Yasmin Aliya Kahn. Always fascinating to have her brilliant analysis. Top story of the day, you may not believe this, but the government is refusing to grant someone a birth certificate who clearly was born in the United States. I'm going to give you the saga. Put her up for a mass. Black woman born during segregation, never was given a birth certificate then, and has trouble getting one now, according to Atlanta Black Star. As many Americans scramble to obtain a real ID, that's the brand name, by the May 7th deadline. One Florida woman is concerned that she will never be able to get one. Jessie Lovett was born when segregation still dominated the South. Her mother gave birth to her at home with the help of a midwife. There was no official birth certificate filed, said Lovett, born in the late 1940s in Marion County, Georgia. I'm going to give you some background as to why this is important. And the reality is, while we're covering one individual, there are many more in similar circumstances. Some of them have been in this for many years trying to get a birth certificate. So the midwives couldn't read or write, but they know how to deliver the baby, she said in a recent CBS News interview, explaining why her birth was not officially reported. Lovett said, the lack of documentation has been a point of shame throughout most of her life. Quote, it's like I'm nobody. That's how I feel, she said. Quote, I was embarrassed to tell my children. And she should not be embarrassed. She should not be embarrassed. You know why? Georgia statute allows for individuals born in a certain time frame to actually prove their date of birth by way of a church certificate of birth, by way of a Bible. Yeah, a Bible. Why is that in the statutory framework of Georgia? Because traditionally back then, when a child was born, the church or the local pastor would present a Bible to the family. And that Bible would have the born on date of said child. That was allowable under Georgia statute. I know this because we had to work in order to get those birth certificates and get those IDs to individuals who wanted to vote in the state of Georgia when I was head of the state Democratic Party as their political director. So I know these stories and I know them well. It continues, the Real ID Act. Here's the issue. The Real ID Act was enacted in 2005 following recommendations from the 9/11 Commission to enhance the security of state-issued identification documents. Implementation has faced multiple delays, just as we said it would. But as of Wednesday, the U.S. states and territories are issuing Real ID compliant licenses and IDs. Now, whatever you may think about this Real ID framework, understand it's a workaround for a national identification card with state logos, okay? It continues, still, She had managed to get by without an ID for most of her life. Quote, I used to go over there by the stadium, Lovett recalled. Quote, they didn't ask for no birth certificate or nothing. You just tell them your age and where you was born at, and they gave you an ID. Those days are over now. Now with Florida enforcing stricter documentation requirements as part of Real ID, a nationwide effort to improve the integrity and security of state-issued driver's license and ID cards in order to, quote, fight terrorism and reduce identity fraud, Ms. Lovett, who now lives in Miami Gardens, finds herself in the middle of a bureaucratic quagmire. Lovett's state ID expired July 2020. And ever since then, she's been trying to get a replacement that's Real ID compliant. Her son, Mr. Derek Lovett, has been working with a Georgia attorney to obtain what's called a delayed birth certificate, but said they've been denied repeatedly. To obtain a Real ID compliant driver's license or identification card in Florida, you must present specific original documents. These documents verify your identity, social security number, and Florida residency. U.S. citizens must present their birth certificates, passports, or certificates of naturalization. It's not that Lovett can't prove she was born in the U.S. The family has collected multiple documents proving her U.S. birth, including a marriage license that lists Georgia as her birthplace. Lovett also has a social security number. She also receives Medicaid and other public assistance. Still, the lack of a valid ID has impacted her ability to get medical care. Quote, sometimes I go to doctors and I'll be turned around, as Lovett said. A recent attempt to obtain a handicap sticker for Miss Lovett was futile. Family members said because of the expired ID she possesses. The family is hopeful a court hearing scheduled in June might finally clear everything up. CBS News Miami reached out to state and federal lawmakers in Florida and Georgia, where officials said they are reviewing the case. Here we are. Digital divide, whatever you want to call it. The reality is these policies were developed, created without contextualizing properly the historical nature of how this country used to do business with its own citizens. She was born in the United States of America. I promise you, they were aware that individuals like this are present and still living because every state has to deal with it to some degree or another. And let's be frank, during the time that Miss Lovett was born, receiving proper health care as a Black woman in the United States of America and in the South, well, that was not a winning ticket for everyone. So it was understandable. This is why statutorily states created these waivers or carve-outs in the law that would allow for other documentation to stand in place of needed documentation if they were born in a particular time frame, because they knew what was happening in that time frame. Now, for a state like Florida to acquiesce to this, they would have to admit that racism existed on some level, systemic bias. In other words, you did not have proper access to these particular medical channels. So documentation may not have been provided. So here we are. It's very sad, Yasmin, that we create policies that would leave out the individuals who helped create this nation to begin with. Those who are elders amongst us, we should create policies with them in mind first and foremost. What say you?
Yeah, I know we're going to discuss this a little bit more in the next story, but there's still so much that Black people specifically in this country are dealing with as part of the fallout from this nation's very like overtly racist past. And I'm not just talking about slavery, I'm talking about everything that happened in in like the 1950s with all the civil rights movement and everything that came from that, and all the reasons as to why we had to have that movement in the first place. And I feel terrible for this woman, the fact that she felt shame and embarrassment over something that was not her fault, over something that was done to her, over something that was really just a relic of a much darker time that she not only lived through, but she survived it. And now here she is trying to get her records in order, and the bureaucracy is not working for her, nor is it working with her, right? There are clearly gaps in the execution of these policies that this administration just loves to roll out prematurely that they hadn't considered or accounted for. And they just create chaos in individual people's lives when they make these big sweeping announcements and expect things to just fall into place, or they expect the people who are most directly affected by these things to just deal with it and figure it out, because on the whole, they're not the problem. They're not the ones that the government is concerned about, despite the fact that, the government, whenever they decided to roll these things out, specifically, I'm talking about the Trump administration. I don't want to sound like some nebulous government. It's the Trump administration. Whenever they do these things, it's almost like there's no planning, there's no forethought into it, right? There's no effort to roll out these initiatives effectively and or efficiently in a way that makes life easier, not more difficult for most people. So it's no surprise that DOGE got so much public support just by demonizing bureaucracy. Everyone hates bureaucracy. Everyone who has ever had to deal with bureaucracy, which is most of us, knows that it is such a time suck. It's an energy suck. It's usually costs you money too, right? Because you have to pay all these fees every time you go in for something. And it really is disruptive in people's lives. Not only that, but it causes stress in people's lives, right? Just the fact that you have to stop what you're doing, talk to this person, talk to that person, wait in line, go to this office, half an hour away from your home, wait on the phone on hold for an hour or two, and maybe you'll get to talk to somebody. All of these things makes life more difficult for people in this country than anything ever needs to be. And I don't mean to get off topic, and I don't want to take away from this woman's struggle, but I'm saying that this country has a long way to go as far as actually making this a nice, easy, livable place for the majority of Americans. And I include Black Americans in that statement, not excluding them.
That's right. And it doesn't take much to be a thoughtful lawmaker to create or recreate the existing caveat that already exists with other states. It's simple. Just duplicate what they've done to allow waivers for people like Miss Lovett. All right, we'll bring you updates as they come. Hell of a thing. Superstar Pharrell, faces some backlash over Met Gala design on White Lotus star. Here it is.
You're wearing art.
Yes, I'm wearing art.
Yeah.
This is crazy.
This look is inspired by the theme of this year's Met Gala, which is super fine. The idea that we love this color black and the world loves this color black. They love black clothes. They love black shoes. They like black dresses. They like black glasses. They like black cars, black planes, even black pink. Right? But here's a moment where we highlight the taste level and the taste buds of Black people.
I feel so honored, and this is so special. Thank you so much.
Nah, thank you. It's great. Can you give him a 360 twirl?
Sure.
Good night.
All right, let's get into it. Put up the picture full mass, and we're going to talk about it. Pharrell Williams has landed in the hot seat after one of his 2025 Met Gala creations stirred outrage. Rosa Parks became a trending topic after viewers and fans noticed White Lotus star and K-pop artist Lisa Manabal, who was styled by the music producer, wore Louis Vuitton. It's an ensemble that many believe disrespected the civil rights activist. One ex-user asks, quote, "Why does Lisa have Rosa Parks in her pants?" One of the historic women who fought against racism. A second onlooker insisted, quote, Lisa needs to fire her whole PR team at this point. Why is Rosa Parks on your girl? A third critic wrote. Lisa was dropping the N-word like it's hot, yet instead of apologizing or even acknowledging the situation, she thought having the late Rosa Parks on her from Cha-Cha, I hope I could say that word on TV, at that was going to make it okay. All right, so, well, fans weren't the only ones who drew this conclusion. Here it is.
So what did we see last night? Well, it was basically Black Lives Matter at the Met. It was a parade of Black Americans, leftists, in their dandy style, which near as I can figure appears to mean over the top black and white with weird shapes and vaginas showing. That's also apparently part of dandyism. Cramming into the Met, where the invitation only tickets went for $75,000 a plate. And that's only for the losers willing to actually pay to rub elbows with stars like Lisa. Who is Lisa, you ask? Yes, I wanted to know too. She's the girl from White Lotus who was dating the security guard. Remember? She's top-notch star talent right there, people. Lisa. And how did Lisa interpret superfine dandyism? Apparently, it meant putting Rosa Parks on her vagina. Yes, yes. This was the height of culture and high couture. Civil rights icon Rosa Parks reduced to a vagina cover.
That's coming from Megyn Kelly, the most prominent bigot at Sirius XM. Let's put it up full mass. So here's the rest of the story. Lisa's outfit was actually a collaboration between Louis Vuitton creative Pharrell Williams, who was also one of the event's co-chairs, and the artist Henry Taylor, the latter of whom has insisted his design did not depict Rosa Parks. Instead, a representative told Vulture that the portraits depicted in Lisa's outfit were of figures from his own life. Spokesperson told the outlet, quote, "The figure featured in Lisa's Louis Vuitton look is not Rosa Parks, but one of Henry's neighbors." Quote, The face is seen on this look, as well as on previous LV garments featuring Taylor's artwork, are all drawn from his personal life, family members, friends, and neighbors. These figures come directly from Henry's existing artworks. None of the individuals depicted in any of the garments are Rosa Parks or other well-known figures from Black cultural history. They added, they are all people from Henry's own life. There's more. The White Lotus actress told him, quote, "I feel so honored and this is so special. Thank you so much." 2 months prior, she and the group members, Rose and Jenny, were exposed by an alleged scorned insider, purportedly an ex-employee of YG Entertainment, when footage of them using the N-word surfaced on social media. Neither the group nor their agency has issued public remarks about the racial controversy. So Pharrell has some controversies as well. So back in 2014, the ubiquitous star spoke to Oprah last week, blubbed while watching fan videos of Happy, but most curiously defined himself as the new Black. Quote, "The new Black doesn't blame other races for our issues," said Pharrell, one of the world's most successful musicians, to Oprah, billionaire and queen of the world. Quote, "The new Black dreams and realizes that it's not pigmentation, it's a mentality, and it's either going to work for you or it's going to work against you. And you've got to pick the side you're going to be on." And in a moderate defense of our dear brother, it's been a while since he's experienced the struggle. And he's talking as if it is about, well, mindset alone. Well, yeah. You see, the mindset of others also play into this. And that's why the social construct of how people perceive race becomes the issue that you're dealing with, not simply pigmentation. If everybody understood race is pigmentation, we wouldn't be here, but they don't. So white supremacists, they don't see race as pigmentation. That's your main problem. Primarily in this government, you currently have individuals who are biased against pigmentation, and they happen to hold positions of power. And so we have to fight against it directly. Also in 2014, in an interview published on Ebony's website, November 13, 2014, Hunt asked if the singer had seen the surveillance video allegedly showing Michael Brown stealing cigarillos from a local convenience store and pushing a store employee. Well, quote, it looked very bully-ish, is the response, that in itself I had a problem with. He said, not with the kid, but with whatever happened in his life for him to arrive at a place where that behavior is okay. Why aren't we talking about that? And for his part, Williams expressed sadness over the grand jury's decision regarding the Brown case. Quote, I'm heartbroken over the news of no indictment in Ferguson. Let's all pray for peace. All right. That's just the rest of the story, ladies and gentlemen. It was an interesting, it is an interesting saga, but there you have it. All right, Yasmin, thoughts here.
Okay. First of all, Lisa, I mean, there's a lot to process with all of this. Lisa, let's put some respect on her name, right? As far as Megyn Kelly could have done like the slightest bit of research, and like Lisa was not known for like some throwaway role that she had on White Lotus. She is one of the biggest pop stars in the world right now. She's a member of Blackpink. So a lot of people know her, and that is why most likely she was at the Met Gala, not because of whatever she did on White Lotus. But whenever people from other countries, especially from very culturally homogenous countries, come over to this one, and I know that Lisa is Thai and not Korean, but there are bound to be cultural missteps. And in this particular case regarding her Met Gala outfit, I'm not trying to blame Lisa for that one. She didn't design the outfit, and the person who did design it said it wasn't Rosa Parks. He still put people's faces on Lisa's crotch, but it was not Rosa Parks's face, so I guess that's better. They probably could have just used a different fabric for the bottom part of the outfit, but I'm not, some fashion director over here. As for the other racist allegations against Blackpink, those are very disappointing. I want to say that this is ignorance based on the fact that South Korea doesn't have a huge Black population, or that they wouldn't understand the significance of that particular term and what it means for Black Americans. But in this day and age, I don't think that ignorance can be used as an excuse. I also don't know who was actually responsible for the girls singing the things that they were singing, especially back in those days. Those K-pop factories are actually pretty abusive. And the things that they have the girls do, and they tell them, you have to do this, you have to perform this in order to be successful in the industry. And most of them, whenever they go into these factories, and they are run kind of like factories, they're very young and they're very timid when they go there. And so they're just doing what they're told. Not that that's an excuse, but I don't know how much I want to read into this particular instance. Yeah. As for Pharrell, he has had some very interesting takes over the years that I thought were questionable, to say the least. I don't agree with a lot of what he has said over the years. His defense of blurred lines, for example. If he wanted to defend the song, that's one thing, but his particular insistence that the song was, and the video, was empowering to women and not demeaning was a little misguided, I thought. But as far as the new Black thing, I'm obviously not Black, and I don't want to speak for a group that I'm not a part of, but from my own background, what it means to be a minority in this particular country is not something that can ever be easily answered, right? We are constantly on some level, whether we want to or not, working to understand who we are, what our place is in this world, where we came from, where we're going, and what our place is specifically, again, in this country. But Pharrell's comment that it's not about pigmentation, he's acting like he's the rule and not the absolute exception, right? He is acting like not only is he very talented, he's incredibly lucky to be where he is today in this country. And Black Americans, I feel bad because they're constantly being told to stop playing the victim. and that their victim mentality is holding them back from achieving greater things. But you can't tell someone to give up that mentality and all of the emotional baggage that comes with it without saying you're also giving up on any chance of getting justice, on any hope of retribution, right? Whether it's reparations or just, being viewed as being equal in this country finally. So by telling people just get over it, that's not helping anything or anyone. There is no growth there, and there's no satisfaction there, right? You can't just it's very easy to say that to someone from outside of that community. And it feels like that's a little bit of what Pharrell is doing to his own community. And I think that's not very nice.
Yeah, and it is ironic that the notion of mindset is always posited as the way Black people think, as if Black folk are monolithic in their thinking. The vast majority of Black people that I personally know and professionally know, they do not have a mindset that says racism first or racism primarily, but they are responsive to racism in this societal construct we call America. They are. And they should be. I should be. We all should be. So when there's this kind of systematic design where racism is put at the forefront in government, in industry, in education, and we're responding to it, I would dare say that the mindset is the supremacist attitude, and we are reacting to the adverse nature of that particular attitude. That's one. The second dynamic is, while I believe Pharrell is one of the most talented individuals in the industry, his comment struck me a little bit like when dear brother Jay-Z told Black folk it's time to, we're over kneeling. That somehow Colin Kaepernick did not mean anything anymore since he's now talking to the NFL. And that's what it felt like. So hopefully, as things progress, things will mature. All right. Well, remember, we brought you a story. This was a while ago about a teacher who made a huge blunder, putting white students with white students and Black students with Black students. Well, $500,000 payout. Put it at full mass. The district admits it was a mistake. This is an update. $500,000 has been paid to a mom after the school segregated students by race. In an update, in Atlanta, Georgia, Kyla Posey. Ms. Posey is a mother who sued the Atlanta Public Schools after she learned her daughter's school, Maryland Elementary, separated students by race. She has now received a $500,000 settlement with the district, which was approved by the board Monday, according to AJC.com. That's the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Let me give you a reminder of the incident. In 2020, Ms. Posey, a career school teacher and administrator herself, was running an after-school program called The Club at multiple Atlanta elementary schools, including Mary Lynn, where her daughter was about to start second grade. Her husband, Mr. Jason Posey, was the school psychologist at Mary Lynn, which had a policy of allowing staff to request homeroom teachers each year. Her lawsuit obtained by Atlanta Black Star says, when the Poseys requested a certain homeroom teacher, the school's principal, Miss Sharon Briscoe, informed them that she had designated other homerooms as the Black classes. It continues, for the second graders, and allegedly tried to persuade Kyla Posey to place their daughter in one of them. Ms. Posey told CNN that Ms. Briscoe warned her that if her child remained in the original class, she would not, quote, have anyone that looks like her. All right. So when I first reported this story, I said, okay, obviously, this is not what we're trying to accomplish inside of our public school system. That's taxpayer funded. Tried that before, it didn't really work. This principal likely believed she was doing something helpful, but it is not. We will talk about that in just a moment. So at the time, Mary Lynn, a top performing school in the APS system, had 634 students. That's about 10%. About 10% were Black. The second grade for the 2020 to 21 school year was slated to have 6 homeroom classes. And Ms. Briscoe reportedly split up the 12 Black second graders registered among just 2 homeroom classes, along with students of other backgrounds, in an effort to, quote, build community among those Black students. Alarmed, Ms. Posey began talking with and complaining about the apparent racial segregation of students to other school administrators and district officials. Ms. Posey claimed school officials told her that they shared her concerns and said they would investigate, but then did not notify her that they had taken any corrective action by spring of 2021, the complaint says. Meanwhile, the then principal of Springdale Park Elementary, Terry Harness, terminated his school's contract with the club, which Posey saw as retaliation for her complaints. Harness was a close friend and confidant of Miss Briscoe, the lawsuit alleges. And in July of 2021, Principal Briscoe began contracting with another after-school service vendor for the following school year, diverting away some of the club's business, which Posey contended was evidence of, quote, ongoing retaliation. Yeah, sounds like ongoing retaliation to me and likely to you as well. There's more to the story. By April of 2022, here we go. With her discrimination and retaliation complaints unaddressed to her satisfaction, Ms. Posey then contacted the NAACP about her concerns. And NAACP representatives conducted a walkthrough of the school. In November of 2022, the U.S. Department of Education Office for Civil Rights began an investigation into her complaints of alleged racial segregation and subsequent retaliation against Posey, her family, and her business by APS. We are all the way in January 2023 now. Ms. Posey filed her lawsuit in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Georgia on behalf of herself and the club, claiming that the Atlanta Public Schools had violated Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and other federal law by discriminating on the basis of race when it retaliated against her for complaining about racial segregation at the school. I don't know what else this family could have done. They gave the system more than adequate time to properly respond. And their response was to eliminate her contracting with certain schools, according to the allegation. There's more. In March of 2024, U.S. District Court Judge Michael L. Brown, Judge Brown, dismissed some of Posey's and the club's claims against APS. And Briscoe, keeping alive her claim of retaliatory discrimination by the district against the club for terminating her contract and the open records related claims. He ruled that she could not seek damages for pain and suffering, but could seek appropriate damages for non-monetary relief. After another attempt to dismiss the case by both defendants and then mediation failed, the parties plunged back into discovery and pretrial activities last fall. Filing a flurry of motions and briefs, in mid-December, they decided to settle. And the court case was technically ended December 17th. So the $500,000 settlement approved by the Atlanta Board of Education on May 5th says in part, quote, in January 2023, the club After School and Kyla Posey filed a lawsuit against Atlanta Public Schools in the United States District Court for the Northern District of Georgia, alleging various violations of federal law. In order to settle all claims in the lawsuit, which are disputed, in the interest of avoiding litigation and other associated expenses, and without admitting any liability, the parties have negotiated a full and final settlement of this matter. Ms. Posey told the Atlanta Journal-Constitution that she disagreed with that characterization of the settlement. Quote, school districts are tasked with being good stewards of taxpayer dollars, and no school district is paying a $500,000 regardless of their statement. That is not an admission of liability, all right? Okay, this is a bad idea, okay? Horrible idea that creates significant liability for not only the district, but also the taxpayer in the local community. In Atlanta, the way it is done is your property taxes in Atlanta pays for the school system. And the budget is robust. But if you decide to willingly violate the laws that govern how you are to operate by way of your statute and your design, well, obviously, that's going to be an issue. But why would this ever be a good idea? If, and I'm talking to the principal directly, if you believe that somehow this is the only way to create a cultural enhancement of a particular demographic inside of the school system, there are better ways to do it than to segregate students. That sends the wrong message. And to be frank with you, it seems lazy to me. If there's a problem, if there's a cultural issue, then that cultural issue has to be addressed as student advocates for every student in that system. And I would expect, based on how the school system did not respond, that Ms. Briscoe was not the only one doing so. There may be some lucky principals that got off here because of the amount of press this received. I'm sure they're not doing it now. This was baffling to me, Yasmin. I remember some years ago, there's a place called Cordele, Georgia. And I learned prior to me speaking at that particular high school that they had two separate proms, a black prom and a white prom. I said, no way, it's unbelievable. And the way they would do it, one was the official prom, and then they called the other one the senior prom or the senior dance. And the senior dance was for white students, and the regular prom was for black students. So obviously I refused to speak until they got that mess in order. But that was still going on in modern day America. What say you?
I'm just confused as to which dance I would have gone to had I gone to that school. Like it doesn't make any sense, right? Segregating students by race today, especially, does not make any sense to me. And maybe because of what you just said, and I'm just like, where am I supposed to go? Things are not black or white in this country, at least not anymore. Maybe if they once were, they certainly are not. But we still like to pretend like they are, right? People are not black or white. And by saying these white kids and these black kids over here, they have to go into different classrooms, they have to go to different proms, you're saying these kids are such polar opposites that they cannot possibly understand one another, they can't play with each other, they can't work together, and they shouldn't even be expected to, because black and white are not supposed to mix. There are no gray children, and apparently they can't even be near each other. But white kids aren't white and black kids are not black, right? Then there's people like me, wherever I fit in. We all exist in some kind of in-between space. And the people who are trying to widen that gap or even maintain that gap, their thinking is incredibly regressive and just unhelpful. We have all kinds of kids to deal with today, including mixed race children. So I don't know what decade these people think they're living in. They need to grow up.
Yeah, big time. All right, obviously no more updates to give you on that story. We got more on the other side. Indisputable, stick and stay.
I don't care if you're Christian. In fact, I will fight for you to have your religious liberty and practice your Christianity. I believe in that. I don't believe in Christianity, which means that you do not get to dictate the way I live my life based on your religion. I don't care what the Bible says. You have every right in the world. All those women who identify with your religion have every right in the world to not get an abortion, to not take birth control, but they do not have the right to dictate my life and what I decide to do with my body. I don't care about your goddamn religion. I'm so tired of having nonstop conversations about what the Bible says. You live your life in the way that you interpret the Bible. Again, I don't care, but you don't get to take the Bible and tell me, well, the Bible says this in this chapter in this verse. I don't care. I don't care. I don't believe in it. And I have the right, based on our Constitution, to not believe in it.
Here I am, Nancy Pelosi, saying this country needs a strong Republican Party, and we do.
No one is representing what I call the silent majority, which is about 2/3 of this country, indisputably progressive.
But now we say the time has come for regime change in American television.
The Young Turks Network.
You have the Young Turks saying this is the time to fight for our values.
Young Turks is the oldest left media institution I believe that there is. Real front runner in the online media space.
You guys might know us. Biggest online left of center outlet that exists.
All of you know the Young Turks?
People from this district heard about Justice Democrats by watching your show.
Thanks to the Young Turks for covering Trayvon Martin's case early on when few people were covered.
They don't stop, I won't stop. Racism won't stop, so I won't stop.
Species are at risk of going extinct. Major media outlets did not dedicate much time at all to that.
We reached a whole heap of people with our progressive message.
We're not the Young Turks, you're the Young Turks.
That's 300 million, that's a pretty good number, Well, that's the size of the US population. You know what our next target is? The size of the entire world.
We just crossed 5 billion views on YouTube.
I mean, imagine 10 years ago thinking one day, we would have looked at you like, are you nuts?
Young Turks has just passed another milestone. 25 billion lifetime views.
Damn.
Too strong, way too strong. That's 25 billion times someone watched the progressive message delivered to people all over the world. You know who helped to do that? You guys did. Our members and our audience are amazing, and they helped us to reach 2 generations, both millennials and Gen Z. They're both super progressive. And I gotta tell you, we're just getting started. Thank you. All right, lots of comments. You guys are the best.
I'm gonna read a few comments from our members.
Mr. Methuselah says on YouTube, super chat, thanks for all the important work you do for TYT for the movement.
Do you know who had the first super chat when I got back from vacation? You won't be surprised to find out. Billy B. Taylor. What do you know? Billy says, rejoice, for Dragon Daddy has returned.
This question sent to us by Izzy Sanchez Jr. Is it me or is Meghan McCain talking as fast as Ben Shapiro? Is that the way the right tries to look smart and intellectual? Well, yes.
Michael Nathan writes it on Twitter. Did Anna choose Cenk's outfit today? I'm sure it wasn't Cenk himself. Man Bun Jenkins Skinny Jeans says, so now Anna has pointed out, okay, that's his handle.
T. Joyce, 1971, saying Donald Trump is good at pulling out of things, NAFTA, the Iran deal, NATO. It's just too bad Fred Trump didn't.
All right, welcome back. Always good to be with you. I will read as many comments as I can. Thank you for joining the combo. Yep. Tiana says, I can understand the jacket, but not the underwear. E. Smith on Pharrell. I guess the new black Pharrell is not concerned with the type of racism that exists today. And Busy B, segregation is wild in 2025, but with the way this country is heading, it's not surprising. Yeah. Tyler Hackner, I'm mixed race. Which dance would I have gone to? I mean, maybe you qualify for both. I don't know. Possibly. Yeah. All right. That's something for you. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish a Karen would.
You want to call the police on them for having a barbecue on a Sunday.
I feel free! Back off!
I'm going to tell them there's an African-American man threatening my life. Very uninspired.
What the wait, do you feel brave hitting a girl? Do you feel brave now? Why don't you
Yeah, you may be saying, the hell? Put it up, full mass. Okay, I'm not really familiar with the particular enterprise, but according to the Post, Introstem employee sparks outrage after shoving Palestinian women in particular wearing headscarves in New York City. This is one of those stories where we would like to have more information, more context, if possible. So if you are aware of more context, please provide it to us at Indisputable. Under no circumstances, however, should anybody feel freedom to create unwanted physical contact. We call that assault. We call that battery in the United States. All right, Yasmin, thoughts here.
Yeah, if you live in New York City and you can't handle seeing people who are different from you, then you just need to leave that city. You walk around parts of New York City, you won't even hear English for a while. So I really don't understand how anyone can be racist in that particular city. Also, whenever people freak out, whenever, they hear the news about Muslim people or whatever, they are everywhere, okay? They're walking around amongst you, okay? And most of the time they're not bothering you. And in this case, we saw they weren't doing anything. They were just walking, then they were being harassed. So just be better or move. Move somewhere where the other people, the scary people can't find you and can't hurt you.
That's right. Yeah. It's all a mental thing in your head that people are scary. Anyway. All right. Well, hell of a thing. Remember the story we covered of the white female who called a child the N-word? She goes viral, raises hundreds of thousands of dollars by all of the other bigots in the United States of America. Well, Piers Morgan had a panel on Playground Karen. I'm going to remind you of the incident and show you what happened on Piers Morgan. Here it is.
You call him a child? Call the child. It is my own business. You call him. Okay, why don't you have the boss to say it right now again? Say. You don't go digging through people. Somebody digging through. A little just did, you dumbass. That little kid, you call him a. The little child?
What if he acts like one? He's gonna.
Are you about to hit him? You chase him here?
He took my son's stuff.
So that gives you the right to call the child 5-year-old the N-word.
If that's what he's gonna act.
That's
like.
what you're gonna call him.
That's what he's gonna act like.
That's a hate speech.
Yep, that is hate speech. Put it up full mass. She accuses a 5-year-old child of theft, which, by the way, not even possible. No mens rea attached, no formulation of criminal intent, etc. Last week, we shared a story featuring this individual who was caught on camera calling a little child the N-word on a Minnesota playground. Now, Mark Lamont Hill pops off on Piers Morgan for inviting white former TikToker who went viral for saying the N-word to say the racial slur on his show. I'm going to show it to you now.
Unashamedly, and you will
well, go
not
on then,
have
say it. Say
you
the
will
M-
not have
go on, say the N-word. Go on.
No.
Don't invite. No. I don't want you to invite this woman to say a racially harmful term in front of me because I'm the only on here. So if she says it, I'm the victim of it. So please don't invite her for ratings to call me the N-word because that's basically what it's going to be. There's a bunch of white people up here. You and one Uncle Tom on the left here, and to ask her to say the N-word while I'm here is ridiculous. You would not sit here with a Jewish person and say, please use a Jewish slur in front of this Jewish. It's ridiculous. I understand you don't have any bad intent, Piers. I understand what you're trying to do, but we already know she's racist, and I don't want to invite a racial harm to me.
I hear you, and I accept that, and we'll leave it there.
Yeah. You should accept it, Piers. You should have apologized immediately, recognized your wrongdoing, sir. Put it up, full mass. This is the bias that we're talking about. Let's keep that panel up. So Piers Morgan invites a racist human being on the program and then challenges that racist human being to do what racist human beings do. Do it. Do it on my show. Yes, do it. We already know you do it. It's ridiculous. It doesn't respect the panel. It's not a professional conversation. It's not a good faith debate. And our dear brother, Professor Hill, is correct. When the professor posits, now you're inviting me to be a victim of her racism on your show. That should never happen. And Piers Morgan would have never posited to do this for any other group other than Black folk. Believe that. So the update, and big ups. Thank you, dear brother, for saying exactly what you said. Update, she has now received over 700,000. Okay, ridiculous. Now, Black web developer who pushed to shut down Shiloh Hendrix's fundraiser. Man behind viral video gets a barrage of death threats as parents of Black child speaks out. In the video that started it all, filmed by 30-year-old Sharmaik Omar in a Minnesota public park, Hendrix admits calling a young Somali child the N-word because, quote, he took my son's stuff. She then goes on to repeat the racial slur multiple times before seemingly justifying her actions during the recorded confrontation with Omar. Despicable behavior by this woman, by this adult. Despicable. Everyone would agree. Except racist people. Omar told NBC News that the child is on the autism spectrum and that the parents, whom he knows, have expressed support in filing charges against Hendrix. A local chapter of the NAACP has raised more than $300,000 for the family since the video went viral. Rochester police, meanwhile, say they completed an investigation of the incident, though it's not clear what, if any, criminal charges Hendrix may face. Now, some of you may say, well, it's covered by free speech. Not so fast. There's a statute. Let's take it to the state of Georgia for a moment. There's a state statute that says if you use profanity in front of a minor, you can be charged with a misdemeanor offense that is akin basically to child abuse, okay? It doesn't say how many times you have to utilize that particular profane language. It doesn't really qualify what is profane and what is not. It's kind of up to the authorities to decide. There's more. Omar also faced death threats for exposing Ms. Hendrix. Quote, I'm not a man with a lot of words. This is the first time I've spoken in front of people. But that didn't stop me from protecting that child, end quote. He said during a town hall Wednesday night in Rochester, quote, right now, I am being punished. I have death threats against me online, phone calls, and my information has been leaked online as well. Yep, been there. There's more. Jacob Wells, co-founder of Give, Send, Go, a Christian fundraising platform where Hendrix launched her, quote, defense fund, told Piers Morgan, quote, she might have some racial animus, but wouldn't call her a racist. He defended potentially making Hendricks a millionaire based on her racist outbursts, arguing that the site is about redemption, not cancel culture. You know, ironic, isn't it? It's about redemption. Christian platform. I wonder how much of the percentage of those donations does your Christian platform receive for the administrative fee to handle that much money? Just a question. But if you're doing this all for redemption, and this is a redemption site, understand what redemption is. It means to redeem. You cannot redeem if you have not acknowledged the need for redemption in the first place. So without an acknowledgement, a full throttle acknowledgement, repentance is what your Bible would call it. Without that, there is no redemption given, because redemption has to be sought by the individual, and it is not something that is simply given by a company. So let's stop the immature conversation of redemption or the falsity of your Christianity. This is a business decision, and you know good and damn well it is. Put up this Sister Full mask. Now, Keandria Demon is working to make sure she never sees a sin. Keandria Demoni, an entrepreneur and activist based in Atlanta, Georgia, with a growing online platform, has become known to, in her own words, bully racists off the internet, or to stop doing whatever it is they've done. Quote, I was initially looking for things that were red flags as far as their compliance as a company. She told the Griot during a recent phone interview, quote, I started thinking like, this isn't going to be enough because they're just going to fix it and they're going to keep operating, end quote. The 33-year-old social media disruptor has launched an effort to prevent Hendricks from receiving any money from her campaign on GiveSendGo, which has netted over 600,000 up to 700,000. The ask has since been increased to 1 million by the racist woman. By directing her nearly 50,000 followers and all who want to help put pressure on the fundraising platform and payment processor by making complaints, she hopes to hold them accountable for profiting off of hate. I encourage you to look up Ms. Keandria, follow her, and do likewise. We cannot allow this to go unchecked. All right, Yasmin, thoughts here.
Yeah, I love how Piers Morgan loves to portray himself as the adult in the room on these panels. Like he's just the moderator trying to get to the real truth of the matter, as if the real truth in this particular case isn't completely obvious. Meanwhile, look at the panel that he assembled. He knew what he was doing when he put all these people together on one panel. When he invited a woman who takes pride in being a white supremacist and saying the N-word, and a man, the aforementioned Uncle Tom, who wrote a book about how women deserve less. And he put them all in the same panel to discuss the ethics of a white woman calling a child the N-word. I honestly don't know why the right is so obsessed with this story, because it makes them look bad. In defending this woman, they are embracing the thing that they try all the time to pretend not to be about. So now, the only narrative they have to fall back on is that they're against cancel culture. To be fair, some right-wing commentators, they have tried to distance themselves from this story, because as much as they can pretend that the people donating to this woman are doing so because they believe in free speech, the comments on her donation page say otherwise. They are overtly racist. They're racist people who are supporting a woman who they identify as one of themselves. And you can't call a child the N-word without being a racist. You just can't. You wouldn't do something like that if you were not a racist. You just wouldn't think to do it. So the fact that we're even debating that is ridiculous. It's exhausting. We don't need to have this discussion anymore.
Right. Well said. All right, we got more on the other side. Indisputable stick and stay.
Using the military inside the United States, totally unacceptable. And there's no need for it. Well, our cops can't arrest drug cartel gang members? Of course they can. They have great numbers in the past. And the military doesn't do a better job of policing than the police does, no matter whatever you think of the failings of the police. So it's just, there's no need for it. And second of all, anytime we start calling people terrorists, here comes the demagoguing. So the word has no meaning. It doesn't really, it's never used consistently. It's only used against people we don't like. So it's just totally, best case scenario is totally needless. Worst case scenario used for demagoguing and military force. So the third bucket is, should we invade Mexico? Are you kidding me? Why would we attack Mexico? What kind of lunatic talk is this? And I know why Trump's doing it. He thinks keep everything on the table, right? And let me make sure that I use my leverage, and this is among my options. I get it. But it sounds mental, and it's destabilizing for the world when we threaten to invade half the countries in our hemisphere.
What are some of your proudest projects at TYT? TDR, I mean, pitching the idea for this show and making it a reality and seeing it grow and evolve over the past 5-6 years. Dear God, has it been 5-6 years? But I have to say True North as well. The farthest reaches of the earth being traveled to by TYT, embedding with a team of scientists, producing this absolutely beautiful footage of a part of the world that doesn't receive much attention on a topic that I really care about. That's always gonna be super important to me.
The rest of the news media says you should not fight for positive change. If you do, you're not really a reporter or a journalist, because reporters and journalists don't care what happens. I don't agree. That's not written anywhere. That's not a law. It's just a rule that they invented so that reporters didn't actually challenge the people that are in power. Well, we don't agree with that. We think we should challenge the people in power, that actually makes you a better journalist, not a worse one.
All right, well, the Young Turks special election day coverage dropping.
An amazing power panel.
Look at this panel. You want to talk about power?
Like a smart Destiny's Child.
We're all too strong. We start a revolution. Yes, another one.
Aren't you excited?
Wow.
And then the best writers in the country are right here on this panel with the obviously
where it started in a lot of ways.
Why is he lying? Because these are acts that you can commit with impunity.
Most of us are usually in boxer shorts underneath.
I went with the pants today.
This is the first ever power panel with Donald Trump as president.
We have elected the top Twitter troll in the country.
We have to stop pretending that race is not an issue in this country.
Now keep in mind, racism had gone away until Barack Obama brought it back.
That's right.
They want to protect life so much that they want to ensure that insurance companies don't cover your maternity care.
How do you know if you're a populist? Easy. Do you work for the donor class? You don't? Great, you're a populist. Okay, so the establishment takes money from the donors and serves the donors. The mainstream media takes money from advertisers, and they are giant corporations themselves, and they work for themselves, and they work for the powerful. If you care about the average person, and you want the average person to have better health care, better wages, a better life, and you hate corruption, congrats, you're a populist.
All right, welcome back. Always good to be with you. A lot on the agenda still. Let me read some comments. Okay, Stockton, Florida. This girl needs to get a Karen haircut so we can recognize her from blocks away. Talking about the Karen. Jan Morgan, the money should be confiscated and given to the family of the child she verbally accosted. Well said. And Colin Hutton, thank you, Colin. Greatly appreciate you. Any black man, Myron Gaines, who is on panel that has to change his name just to please a pander to other races is a sellout in my book. That's why Professor Hill said it the way he did. I agree. And Tiana, this woman was attacking a child while holding her child. I think this is Parmesan trees. Piers is still upset that Meghan Markle turned him down. And I think this is Havar Ellis. I still can't believe this woman gifted $600,000 off a whole bunch of people that absolutely agree with her. Yeah, there you go. It has nothing to do with free speech. It's racism. That's it. Real simple. Okay, well, here we go. Trump administration fouls up again, intentionally so. Asian migrants held in solitary unless they agree to be sent to Libya. Yeah, Libya. Put it up full mass. This administration is like an SNL skit come to life. Asian migrants have been thrown into solitary unless they accept deportation to Libya, according to a new lawsuit. The Trump administration is moving to deport Asian nationals, including Cambodians, those from the Philippines, Vietnam, and sending them to Libya. A new legal complaint filed in the Massachusetts federal court has alleged the migrants have no ties to the country, which is notorious for human rights abuses. And detainees who refuse to sign the paperwork authorizing it are being thrown in solitary confinement, the lawsuit alleges. Realize how illegal this is? Realize how insane this is. To those who voted for Trump, I don't recall you voted for this. I don't recall you saying you wanted this. I don't recall anyone campaigning on this specific form of torture and corruption. It's the latest in a long string of allegations in court that the Trump administration is bypassing due process for huge groups of people, officials summarily deemed to be in the country illegally, and at times ignoring federal judges' orders to stop. We've said this before on Indisputable. They are getting ready for a showdown with the judicial branch, the co-equal branch of government. And now the showdown is here. Are the judges going to have the fortitude to enforce the Constitution? Or will they simply allow the administration to continue to violate these orders? Hell, they arrested a federal judge just days ago, claiming the federal judge assisted an undocumented individual or individual ICE was running after in aiding and abetting their escape. It was insane, ridiculous. But they did it. Looks as if they're going to get away with it. Unless or until the judiciary, unless or until they stand up against the tyrant. There's more. Quote, this motion should not even be required as it blatantly defies this court's preliminary injunctions to remove class members without proper notice, a reasonable fear screening, and a 15-day opportunity to submit a motion to reopen after any negative, reasonable fear determination. Wrote the motion for a temporary restraining order. However, multiple credible sources report that flights are preparing to immediately depart the United States carrying class members for removal to Libya. End quote. Quote, this motion allows class counsel receiving multiple reports that class members and their immigration counsel have not received the required protections provided by this court's preliminary injunction, the complaint continued. Specifically, they have not been provided, 1, notice of third country removal in their own language. 2, notice of the opportunity to request and obtain a reasonable fear screening. 3, notification of the results of any reasonable fear screening. And 4, a 15-day window in which to file a motion to reopen the immigration court if there is a negative reasonable fear determination. And worse still, the motion alleged immigration and customs enforcement officers are throwing detainees in the hole if they don't fill out paperwork agreeing to be removed to Libya. Cruel and unusual, right? There's more. Quote, the reports with respect to the imminent removal to Libya show Inter Alia Philippine, Vietnamese, Laotian class members being set for removal without any reasonable fear screening, let alone a 15-day window to file a motion to reopen with the immigration court to contest any negative reasonable fear determination. I have more here. What is a fear determination? Exactly what it sounds like. So it's a coercion dynamic. It's for the court to be able to analyze that part of the agreement, if there's an agreement at all. An agreement cannot be forced. An agreement cannot be forced by the government. Contracts, just a basic contract, cannot be enforceable under duress. So what agreement has happened? None. If it's done under duress, it's not enforceable anyway. So it doesn't matter that there's a signature if it's done through coercion. In one reported case, U.S. Immigration and Customs officers, ICE, officers at the South Texas detention facility gathered one Vietnamese detainee along with 5 others, including one from Laos, into a room and told them that they needed to sign a document agreeing to be deported to Libya. When they all refused, they were each put in a separate room and cuffed in basically solitary in order to get them to sign it. Now, shortly after this motion was filed, noted American Immigration Council attorney Aaron Melnick, District Judge Brian Murphy issued an order telling ICE that any efforts to deport non-Libyans to Libya without giving them an opportunity to object and raise a fear of torture would clearly violate this court's order. He's putting ICE on notice that it would be completely against the law. We shall see what the response is. Thoughts?
Yeah, I just don't understand why these Asians wouldn't just be sent back to Asia. Like, why are they going to Africa? What are we doing? Why are we doing all of this? Politically, this is silly, right? The Trump administration is doing everything they're doing because they believe their base wants to see more deportations. Well, first of all, they're not deporting more than the previous administration yet. And part of the reason for that could be that deportations, when done properly, are done with due process, and they take time and they take resources to execute. So in an effort for this administration to ramp up its deportation numbers, they're flouting the law of the land. They're bypassing due process. They're making deals with nations that are run by self-described dictators, and they're deporting American citizens in some cases. And as you pointed out, this is illegal, and the courts have already said so. Trump is fighting the courts, pinning the executive against the judicial. But not only that, Trump's own supporters do not support any of this. The most right-wing people are saying, we did not ask for this. There is no due process. And whether or not you think people are guilty or innocent, or if you think they deserve to be deported to El Salvador or Libya because they have a tattoo of Marvin the Martian, the fact is that none of that matters. We don't know if they're guilty or innocent because there was never a trial to determine whether they were guilty or innocent. And that's what this comes down to. And as you said, all of this really is about coercion. And this administration, and it usually comes from Trump's own mouth, loves to play with semantics, both when it comes to legal matters And when it comes to the propaganda, it feeds to its MAGA supporters who understand that they're supposed to support this administration because Trump is protecting them all from the big scary people. And in this case, it is the scary Asian people who are now in solitary confinement unless they agree to go to Libya.
That's right. And while many will say, well, this does erode at free speech, this does erode at due process, all of these violations, it's bigger than that. You see, it erodes the Constitution, the document that gives you these particular rights. And if they can successfully erode the Constitution, they can erode your free speech. They can erode your due process because they were able to nullify the Constitution at large. That's the bigger picture. And that's the part very few are willing to say among the ranks of Trump and MAGA. We got more on the other side. Indisputable, stick and stay. Indisputable is still the fastest growing news show in America compared to CNN, Fox News, and 30 other networks. We tell the truth on Indisputable because the truth is indisputable. We go places that other news media outlets refuse to go. When there were human rights abuses happening at the Victorville prison, guards and members of the community contacted us.
You, through your investigative reporting, unearthed very troubling allegations about specific forms of abuse and discrimination in the federal prison system.
It really doesn't take much to be a trusted voice. All it takes is to be fearless, report on matters, be an advocate. I called it the bullpen intentionally because it's a place of preparation. We present individuals who may have an opposing view, so we debate. Sometimes we interview individuals because their stories deserve to be heard. A survivor of significant police misconduct and his attorney. We covered this story earlier and to remind you of the horror of one man being shot at damn near 100 times by the police. We take time on this show to showcase the temper tantrums of Karens in the wild. We do this not because we want to see people's emotional outbursts in public, but because these incidents are emblematic of a bigger societal issue taking place across the nation, and it has to be checked. My friend, my big homie, attorney at law, Benjamin Crockett.
I just want to thank you, man. Educated, articulate brothers like yourself speak truth to power. It makes a great difference in changing the landscape in America. So
listen, no matter what you do, don't allow the politics of ideology to evaporate the soul that still exists inside of you. They don't stop, I don't stop. Racism won't stop, I won't stop. Systemic bias won't stop, I won't stop. People still need health care, so I won't stop. People still need criminal justice systems reform, so I won't stop. You won't stop either. All right, welcome back. Always good to be with you. A lot of comments. I will read as many as I can. Very thankful. Okay, Stacked in Florida says, so Trump must have made a deal with Libya. Of course, yeah. Agreed. Pretty prissy bird. People need to take action instead of taking to social media to fix this. We need people on their feet and ready to march for our rights. All right, well, Jasmine Crockett confronts Marjorie Taylor Greene over alleged insider trading. Well done. Here it is.
Let's look at fraud. We could investigate whether the White House and the members of this subcommittee engaged in insider trading and market manipulation. Maybe it's a coincidence that the chairwoman brought hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of stock the day before Trump announced a 90-day pause on tariffs. But I guess we'll never know.
Uh-oh. Well, that's the biggie. Put it at full mass. We have some details to share. DOGE, as I call them, DOGE committee goes off the rails after Democrats suggest Marjorie Taylor Greene engaged in insider trading. In a hearing on Wednesday, Democrats suggested Marjorie Taylor Greene had engaged in insider trading. It caused the hearing to be suspended for 20 minutes. Greene's trades during the April tariff dip have drawn scrutiny from Democrats. Democrats suggest at a House hearing on Wednesday that Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene had engaged in insider trading, derailing the proceedings for roughly 20 minutes. The DOGE subcommittee, which is chaired by the Georgia Republican Marjorie Taylor Greene, was holding a hearing on transgender athletes competing in fencing and other sports. Very, very important to the voter. Yeah. Put it up, full mass. So as Democrats on the panel criticized Greene, two of them, both Representatives Greg Kasar and Jasmine Crockett, both of Texas, brought up recent stock trades made by the Congresswoman. Now, when I say recent, really recent, and the timing extremely, let's just say they would have called this circumstantial evidence. We're here because Chairwoman Marjorie Taylor Greene thinks that if she picks on vulnerable people like trans folks, she can avoid having a discussion about the allegations of insider trading against her. Greene purchased tens of thousands of dollars in stock in an array of companies between April 2nd and April 9th. When then President Trump's tariff announcement and subsequent pause led to large shifts in the stock market. The Congresswoman has maintained that the trades were made by an independent financial advisor. Quote, that's something that my portfolio manager does for me, and he did a great job. The Congresswoman told the Georgia Recorder last month. Guess what he did? He bought the dip. Republican Representative Nancy Mace of South Carolina then asked to take Crockett's own words down, saying the Texas Congresswoman was, quote, alleging a criminal act that led to the subcommittee suspending its business to review Crockett's remarks. Eventually, Greene called the meeting back to order. The Republican asked Mace to withdraw her motion, saying that the Texas Democrats' remarks were borderline and that it was important to move on, quote, in the interest of making sure that we stay on track, instead of getting sidetracked by Democrats' nonstop fake accusations. Let's put it up full mass here. Okay. And 58 wallets made over 10 million apiece on Trump meme coin, while 764,000 lost money, according to a new report. Exactly 58 wallets cashed in over $10 million each on President Donald Trump's meme coin, while a staggering 764,000 wallets are sitting on losses. That's according to a new report. And this is a chain analysis. The Trump-themed token, $Trump, exploded onto the blockchain scene earlier this year ahead of the president's second inauguration. But it looks like the coin has delivered purely for a particular elite class of mega profiteers. Those 58 wallets have collectively pulled in how much money? 1.1 billion? 1.1 billion in profits, yes, according to data shared with CNBC. Meanwhile, the vast majority of holders, mostly small-time investors, have been left holding the bag. Of the 2 million wallets that have purchased the coin, 3/4 are in the red. In other words, this issue goes deeper than you ever could have imagined. But as Marjorie Taylor Greene says, he did a good job. Independent financial portfolio person. All right, Yasmin, these individuals, I mean, this is not some kind of left-wing talking point. These individuals are actually in it for money. And listen, I don't give a damn about where we may agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene on some other stuff. This human being is racist, corrupt, and vile, just like Trump and the rest of the cronies in MAGA, period.
I mean, look, like maybe MTG buying all of those stocks right before Trump did what he did was just a coincidence. But as Crockett says, we may never know because there's not any investigation and there might not be any. And insider trading, like, let's be honest, it happens on both sides of the aisle. But it's a problem when either Democrats or Republicans do it. And a lot of Republicans like to pretend that Democrats, oh, you're only mad because it's Marjorie Taylor Greene. No, we're still mad about Nancy Pelosi. And how she said, you know what, I have a right to do what I'm doing. And by the way, those are all my husband's trades. I'm not even involved in any of that. So some Congress people do want to do something about all of this, including Jasmine Crockett, but it feels unlikely that anything will happen because the same people who would outlaw it are the same people benefiting from it and benefiting to the tune of millions of dollars. There is one Republican representative, Rob Bresnahan, who actually introduced a bill on Friday that asked for a stock trading ban and transparency among Congress people. But Capital Trades, which is a site that monitors lawmakers' trades, found that Bresnahan was one of the most active freshman traders in Congress. He made 357 trades in his first few months in Congress, even though he says, he doesn't do the trades. He has somebody who manages all of his portfolio and all of his stock trades and things like that, which is exactly what Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying. Also, there's the fact that Trump posted something on X, whatever he said, now would be a good time to buy the dip or whatever, right before he reversed his tariff calls. And so he knew that the market was going to rebound. And so I feel in him doing that, he was giving people ample cover, right? They're saying, oh, you know what? I was just doing it because Trump said I could. Trump said to do this, so I did it. And so now it's like, was it insider trading or was this publicly available information that the people were acting on? So that's where it gets a little bit murky as far as litigating something like this. I think there is maybe a better argument for like market manipulation on the part of the Trump administration. But again, we'd have to have an investigation to see how all this would play out.
And Yasmin, isn't that the way of these individuals when you think about it? They have done the thing illegal that typically would be done privately. They've done it up front. I mean, Trump publicly called for his supporters to go to the Capitol. It wasn't a private meeting. It was a public proclamation. And when you look at the system of approaches, they have routinely done it this way in order to claim plausible deniability while at the same time still breaking the essence of why the rule is there in the first place or the law that they violated in the first place. And I will say this, it is interesting to me that these individuals represent people who are from various socioeconomic backgrounds. And while the fake out, in my opinion, is, well, if you vote for us, we're going to provide the livable wages that you need. The economy is going to bounce back. But damn, that hasn't happened. But you guys are much richer today than you were before Trump got elected. But the people that voted you in are not. They're poorer, they are less employed, and they now have less benefits and opportunities to look forward to due to your cutting of so many offices and opportunities. So how does this, and I'm asking you specifically, how do you think this is going to be reconciled in the context of Democratic politics? Because even though this is happening, Democrats have to figure out a way to message it properly to make the case. And that's something they haven't done well.
Yeah, the Democrats, the thing is, they know that they have a messaging issue and they talk about, you know what, I know that we have this issue, but they don't do anything about it. And they still haven't quite figured out how to address that issue. And on some level, I do sympathize with them, right? Because a lot of the things that they're trying to get these American people to understand, it's not easily summed up in some kind of slogan, right? The Democrats are assuming that people are still out here reading books and not memes, whereas the Republican Party understands that these people are operating off of memes, right? They're getting most of their information off of snippets that they see on social media. They're getting entire like ideologies just from comment sections. Somebody said this, and so then it goes into their memory bank, and then they understand it that way. Something that's interesting about these stock trades, particularly, is that, as you said, so many Americans are still suffering. We're not seeing the rebound in prices that Trump promised we would see, whether or not, I didn't believe it, but a lot of his supporters did. And that's really why they voted for him. But if they see people like Marjorie Taylor Greene making millions and millions of dollars off of her stock trades, in some way, they internalize that as, things are looking up. Things are doing well, are going well now for some people. And it's only a matter of time before that trickles down to me. The Democrats need to be more forceful about the fact that this economy over here that the billionaires and the millionaires are playing in is a different economy from the one that you're playing in, right? And I don't mean that in the literal sense. I mean that there are things that are going to affect the millionaires and billionaires, things that they're going to be able to profit off of and, just pull in millions of dollars at a time, that the average American who is not invested in the stock market or who doesn't have access to the president the way that people like Marjorie Taylor Greene do would be able to benefit from. So however the Democrats figure that out, whether that's town halls, they do really well whenever they go to town halls, actually. Whether they're going, like I always think of Beto O'Rourke when he was running for the Senate here in Texas. He made a lot of he doesn't get as much credit as I think he deserves because ultimately he lost the race, but he came very, very, very close, closer than anyone. He was considered to be a very progressive Democrat at the time, but he made a lot of inroads with Republicans and Republican voters just by going to their counties and talking to them. And the Democrats, it's a much harder route to go compared to what the Republicans have been able to do by weaponizing social media and all these like short form bits of, snippet politicking, but the Democrats, if they want to earn trust back from their voters, they're going to have to put in the work to do so.
Well said. Agree 100%. Always fascinating to have your analysis with us. Tell people how they can follow you and check out your great work.
Yeah, I'm over on Rebel HQ. I do videos 4 days a week there, and you can catch me here. And also, I'm on the main show tomorrow night.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. Always fascinating. Remember, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, take care of the planet. Remember, the truth is always indisputable.